Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we're back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we're here to bring you more knowledge, more lights, and more love. As usual, our guests are amazing, and we have another one. His name's Joshua Stroud. His family founded Conscious Cultivators, one of the premier organic farms in Oregon, one of the premier top-tier organic cannabis farms in the state of Oregon, one of the greatest organic cannabis farms in the Northwest. Incredible farm. He's here with us, and we're going to talk to him. But first, I need you to do something for me. Go to bluecobracbd.com. That's bluecobracbd.com. And there you will find Blue Cobra CBD oil, the highest quality CBD oil on the market. And the reason that is because it is developed with a proprietary extraction method called the HIT extraction method, developed by Howard Hitt, aka Big H, and it is 100% natural. There's no chemicals, no solvents, no gases are used in the extraction process of this product. So it's unlike anything on the market. And Howard uses 100% organic, Oregon-grown hemp to extract the CBD for his oil, which is also 100% organic. And normally, if you've been listening in the last few weeks, I've been telling you about the Midnight on Earth discount code that I have with Blue Cobra CBD. But today, we're taking it to an entirely different level. I'm not sure if Howard maybe got into the wrong bottle. Maybe I left a bottle of THC oil at his house. I'm not sure what happened, but he's giving away free bottles of Blue Cobra CBD. Literally free. It's like free money. These bottles cost $39.95. He's giving them to you for free, including the shipping. All you have to do is one thing. First, you go to bluecobracbd.com, and there you go to the contact section to find his email. And I'm just going to tell you what it is right now. bluecobracbd@gmail.com. That's bluecobracbd@gmail.com. The @ symbol @gmail.com. You send him an email. Tell him that you heard this on Midnight on Earth, and he will send you one bottle free of charge anywhere in the world. You don't have to pay shipping. You don't have to pay anything. He wants people to try this product. There's really nothing like this product. I take it daily. You can put it on your body topically, of course, for muscles, things like that. I put it in my shake in the morning because you can put it in your body. It's 100% organic, like I said previously, and it's incredibly beneficial. And Howard wants you to experience this. So if you go to bluecobracbd.com, you send him an email, tell him that you heard about this offer on Midnight on Earth, Give him your address, give him your name, and he will, or wherever you want it shipped to, you can create your own name. Just have it a valid shipping address, and he will send you a bottle to try free of charge. If you're listening to this, you have to take advantage of this. It's incredibly generous of Howard to give away something that's so high quality that he feels has benefited people that he knows in his life, and so many people that have told him about their experience with it. And he wants people to try it, and he loves supporting this show. I'm absolutely honored that he's willing to be a sponsor because his product is so amazing and he's such a cool guy. His family's amazing. Blue Cobra CBD@gmail.com. And he wants people to try this. So send him an email and get a free bottle valued at $39.95. Go to bluecobracbd.com. That's one more time, bluecobracbd.com. Send him an email. Get a free bottle. bluecobracbd@gmail.com. And when you're done with that, follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. If you haven't done that already, please go to Instagram and click the follow button that connects us so you know when the episodes are going to drop. You know what's going on, whatever we're doing in Midnight on Earthland. You're going to figure it out instantly because you're going to get a notification. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts, click the button that connects us. And of course, the most important thing is tell a friend. Tell people that you know that want to know about conscious cannabis cultivation, which is what we're going to talk about. And just all the other topics that we talk about on the show and all the other guests that share their life experiences. Help your friends and family members that need to hear about this know about this show. Please tell them midnightonearth.com. Okay, I told you about Blue Cobra CBD. Got my social media shout out of the way. And now we can talk to Joshua Stroud of Conscious Cultivators. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about his life. Very rough bio that we have here. Joshua Stroud is a organic grower and has been a pioneer in the organic gardening community. Growing organically since 1996, Joshua has created a legacy of not just unique genetic strains, but also forwarding the understanding of why organic gardening is so beneficial, and also just the organic gardening movement in general in the cannabis world. His family founded Conscious Cultivators together in 2015, and it is a premier top-tier farm with award-winning strains such as Big E and UW. And he's here today, and we're going to talk about why it's important to grow organically and also just conscious cannabis cultivation in general. Thank you for being here, Josh.
Hey, thanks for that introduction. Blessings and respect. That was a good one.
Thank you. And actually, I should say thank you for letting me be here, because I'm at the mysterious headquarters or sub-headquarters of Conscious Cultivators deep in the jungles near Eugene, Oregon. So he's allowing me to be here remotely. So I super thank you for that, Josh. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, welcome to Hash Hills, we've dubbed it.
Yeah, you know, there's cannabis in the air. I might have ingested some of that cannabis prior to this interview.
Oh yeah, on your way out here, you pass many ganja field, hemp field, and even rec farms these days. So
yeah, it's legal. And you were involved
from here
in
to
it.
there.
You were involved in it. You've been open publicly. I mean, have you? I think you have.
Actually, we just got licensed recently. It's been a long, build up to, waiting in a queue, so to say, to have the state issue the licenses to different farms, and they've slowly come on board. But just this coming week, we'll have our third production farm up and running, which will be a mostly breeding facility for new strains coming along. And, some of those developments will turn into batches going out to the market and stuff like that. But even about a month ago, we got the nursery license up and going and working on the strains that we have already developed for that upcoming, spring rush of everyone wanting to plant and sort out their strains for the year and things like this.
But you've been very open in the past about your life prior to legalization.
Yeah.
You've always been forthright about your life as a career cannabis grower. And in order to be a career cannabis grower, it automatically implies that you were growing prior to legalization. And that's the period of your life when you were honing your skills.
Yeah. Well, really it began out of, curiosity and necessity even. My mom was issued one of the first medical, prescriptions back in 1996 in California.
Oh, wow.
And so once that happened, we were able to, play around with some strains and grow some things for her to try to help her with just different ailments she had from a prior injury, near fatal injury in the 80s that left her with a brain injury and some other, lifelong issues to deal with. But around the late 90s, she found out she had diagnosis of kidney cancer, and we, doctor tried all sorts of things, and we already knew cannabis as a medicine in our family at that point, and started trying out different strains and different parts of the plants on mom, from the roots to the fan leaves to the trim, and of course the flowers. And from that became a passion and, just a lifelong, hobby at first that turned into a career after time. Yeah. And myself and my mom having one of the early Oregon medical, it's called OMMP in Oregon Medical Marijuana Program cards. It gave us a lot of chance to develop and continue working with strains to find different, aspects. We were playing around with CBD before it was even really diagnosed in a commercial lab or.
Yeah, it was just weed that didn't get you stoned.
Exactly. We called it the no high, but a lot of times mom wanted the medicine without having the effects of feeling sleepy or, too hungry. She didn't always want to have a big appetite all day.
Right. Or have the psychoactive.
Yeah,
experience.
Exactly. She wanted to just have a day without it. So a lot of those no high strains, we called them, ended up being, in the 2014, 15 time frame, started being hemp strains that we found out were so low in THC that they actually could work as commercial hemp and grow hemp fields, letting those people in all the legal states at that time and eventually nationally in, I think, 2019, to where they could, confidently grow a strain that would not produce THC at the end and be legal hemp, and a legal crop for them to work with. But that was a whole nother thing. But awesome thing that turned out from developing those strains for mom.
Yeah. But back then it was really hard to get your medical. There was a 3-plant limit, and it was a very new concept, not just in Oregon, but in America in general, to have this legal cannabis that a person could get a prescription and then get a recommendation in order to get this certification. Back then in 1996, it was very hard to do, and you were very limited. You had 3 flowering plants that could only be a certain height, I believe.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember the exact limitations then, but they've changed and fluctuated over time.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, getting that first card, mom actually got that from her physician, her surgeon actually down there. So it worked out easy for her, but it was obvious good effects and good outcomes, from it all. There was one strain we called Mama Sue's Miracle that actually seemed to put the cancer in regression.
Wow.
She did have, it was amazing. You know, her doctor said they did some surgery on one of her kidneys and I believe removed part of it. And after that, she started an extreme regimen of eating the leaf and some of the flower from this one strain that didn't get anyone high. And at that point, you know, we assumed it was CBD, which later on, generations later on that, it still had a good amount of CBD, but that helped her to just do better. And the doctor said, hey, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. She's like, well, my son has this, you know, this cannabis plant. And he's like, I don't really want to hear that, but you keep doing it, you know? So at that time it was, a little more, you know, underground. Doctors didn't always want to talk about it. A lot of doctors wouldn't even prescribe it or have anything to do with it.
Oh God. Yeah. They feared losing their licenses essentially.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure California was maybe the first state.
Yes.
In 96. And then soon after, I think Oregon in 98 and probably a few others at that point. Sure, what, Colorado and Washington.
Oh, so wait, in 96, this was in California.
This is in California.
Okay, I was confused.
I first moved there. Yeah, it was, you know, long ago. I moved there for other reasons we can touch on, going down for reggae concerts and see my aunt for her birthdays. And she lived in Humboldt County. And turns out bringing mom down there to, you know, there was a short supply of cannabis in Oregon at the time. So it seemed. All depended on who you knew, but, you know, prices were higher. It was hard to come by. Grows up in Oregon were underground. A lot of it had to be imported that people found. So there was no healthy cannabis up there, we felt. And having her down there eating and consuming the cannabis, we grew organically, like the gardens that her and my father always had us growing out in Pleasant Hill, Dexter, Oregon, where we lived. So, because they always grew organically and showed us that, hey, you know, you could take the manure from the animals and this sort of thing to grow, you know, healthy tomatoes, healthy zucchini, healthy, you know, broccoli that you can feel good about eating because we didn't put the chemicals and the sprays on it. Well, yeah, you know, and so we did apply the same thing to the cannabis.
And that's part of what we're talking about. We're talking about conscious cannabis cultivation. And the reason that that's important is because, you know, Josh has 2 careers in his life. He's a reggae promoter and he's also a cannabis grower. We're going to talk about his reggae promoter career. Don't worry. Because he's interacted with every reggae legend you could possibly imagine and has a story for each one. And in some cases, dozens of stories. But we're going to get to that. But first we have to talk about his epic career as a organic cannabis grower and why that's so important. Okay. So then you're interested in growing. I mean, you're healing your mom, you're having these experiences where you see how cannabis has these medicinal properties. But when did your interest in organic growing begin? Because that's truly what we're here to talk about. We want to educate people about this. Tell me when your interest in organic growing began.
So that really comes about at an early age when I, you know, like I said, when I was a kid, we grew up out right on Lost Creek out there in Dexter, Oregon. And we, you know, I don't know if it was out of my parents' just love of gardening or a necessity to grow food, but they taught all of us to, you know, appreciate what was coming from the land and our own hard work. We had a pretty big garden in the day. To me, it seemed like an acre. I'd have to check with my folks. It was at least a half acre of vegetables. I mean, lots of rows of everything from peppers and cucumbers, you know, cabbage, whatever. And they had us out there working, at least myself and probably my brother Joel and Ethan and Julie, my sister. Yeah. So one of the first, you know, memories of thinking about growing organically was when we planted my brother Ethan. We actually were out there just digging holes, playing. Let me think. It might have been for like a fence or something. We had goats and stuff, so to keep the animals out of the garden, probably chickens too. Dad was digging post holes or something, whatever it was. Maybe the brothers dug it. I don't know, but we planted my brother Ethan, and that's when Mom said, "Oh, good thing it's organic soil," you know, because she was kind of joking at the time, but it really stuck in my head because it was just a fun memory. Ethan buried up to his armpits, you know, 4-year-old child in the soil, and he loved it. Mom was mad at us, and they tried to pull him out. It was probably a little dangerous. I don't know. They were straining him, pulling him out and stuff, but he was fine. And, you ended up growing taller than all of us too. So maybe, planting you in the earth had something to do with it. But from that point, it just, and then I asked my mom about what organic was. And that's probably when she first explained it to me. And I realized, how good that was. Around the same time, there was also a big thing with gypsy moss in Oregon having to do with the timber and either the larva of it or the actual moss destroying timber around. And so they would come around with these helicopters and spray. Now, I don't know. I was young, so I don't know officially how it was, but there was helicopters flying over our neighborhoods out there. We were in timber country, but definitely farmland in between. And they're spraying for gypsy moss. And they'd say on the news, "Oh, don't let your kids out from noon to 2 tomorrow." And then the helicopters would come and mom would be like, "Oh, come inside." Sometimes I remember specifically being out there watching the spray come out of them. They didn't stop and be like, "Oh, there's kids down there."
Yeah, they just kept going.
They just kept spraying because that was the grid they were spraying that day. To me, that's mind-boggling that they'd go around with, helicopter spray and just blanket the land. But that's what they did. And I remember that being an issue for mom having an organic garden, was that there was this spray going on. And so it all started sticking in my mind and realizing that, oh yeah, this is why we got to wash our vegetables better. And, she just used dish soap or whatever and wash them because we had to wash the pesticides off. And to me, that always seemed extra, like, oh, you have to spray this stuff and then you take it off. I didn't put the association that people actually spray their plants and things until later on in life. Maybe when I worked at a organic flower farm in Northern California.
Is this before you were a cannabis grower?
Before I was a cannabis grower. I'd probably grown a plant or something. But when I first down there and came to see my aunt down in Humboldt County to see a reggae show, I ended up realizing I wanted to stick around there. Well, to stick around, I had to get a job. I was just out of school, 18 years old, I guess, 17, 18. And this nice lady down the road from us where I lived with a nice family, they were hiring for help on their organic flower farm. And what she did was produce cut flowers for people from, all over the country. We'd make bouquets or do bunches of straw flowers, status, even roses sometimes, and different things that, a lot of just stock flowers and baby's breath, things like that, pack them up, and she'd ship them off to like Texas, different spots in the country to have their fresh flowers. And it was real important to her. And she also showed me the techniques of how to just grow and do what she was doing, but organically. And a lot of that, stuck in my head, and me having that prior experience at my parents' farm and everything, I realized that that's where I wanted to be, heading, growing organically. Around that same time, I'd be asking her questions. My curiosity of cannabis at that age and being in Humboldt County and seeing the culture of it around me, I realized that this was a good person to ask about cannabis. The woman herself, who owned Tranquility Lane Flower Farm, she actually was like, "Oh, I don't really get into growing cannabis. I'm not into it, but treat it like you would a lot of other, plants. You want to keep that organic and healthy, right? Especially if you're going to put it in your body." And from that point on, it was engraved in me,
Nice.
Yeah. I would say that was the root of it all.
But then you did grow up in the Eugene, Oregon area, and that seemed to correlate with the organic gardening movement that was happening in Eugene, and also the organic cannabis gardening movement that actually started right around that time in the Eugene area. It was always kind of underground
True.
in the 70s and 80s, but never really prevalent with nutrient lines and actually focused information about organic gardening as it was in the 90s in Eugene. And was that an influence on you as well? It was.
Yeah. If you remember back then, I know you spent time in Eugene. So,
yes.
Places like Sundance Natural Foods was a well-known establishment, well-known, store that was all organic all the time. And for a store to be all organic all the time seemed normal to me. I always thought, instead of saying, "Hey, this produce is organic," and the other stuff's conventional, or just we don't say nothing about it. It should be, this is the normal vegetables, the organic ones, and this stuff is conventional, or here's the chemi vegetables.
Chemical, yeah.
Yeah, here's peppers and chemical peppers. Here's, tomatoes and non-organic tomatoes.
Right. Somehow the
labeling
shifted.
Yes, to where we have to put it out there that it's organic. That's kind of backwards to me, but
you grew up differently.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I actually lived right next, about a block away from Humble Bagel and Sundance Natural Foods, and they had organic stuff at these spots, and it made more sense than going down to whatever the other store was down the road that didn't offer this. So seeing also that there was a higher price paid for the organic produce and people appreciated it. So I put that into also my idea of with cannabis in Humboldt County. Once I moved there, I realized that, hey, all these people are selling their herb. A lot of it are used in Miracle Grow or commercial fertilizers you use for conventional stuff. And
God knows what that stuff is. It's cancer causing.
It didn't make sense to me. And I was like, oh, if you could do organic cannabis, doesn't that get you a higher price? I mean, granted, at the time, I would say majority of the people, I could be wrong about this, but the majority of people in Southern Humboldt were growing organically with, local inputs and things from the forest, if anything, good old Stutzman's manure or something like that. And, which is chicken manure. But all that came together as saying, well, hey, look, there's some people here that are getting this price for their stuff. And my curiosity with herb, working, I think full time at the time at the flower farm, was like, oh, I could just apply this to cannabis. And
you already were in sync with organic culture in general.
Yeah, just growing and
better.
It made sense. Yeah. It didn't make sense to do another way, like just the easy way to segue into it. I don't even know if I gave it much thought.
It seemed like it was easier to do it the natural way, the real way. Oh, wow.
That and the price seemed like it would be more, and the value more for organic cannabis. This is the same time when Mom needed some cannabis of her own. And at times she's like, oh, if you're living down there, she knew about Humboldt County more than I did at that age, her being a child of the 70s and everything. She came down there to get her medicine, or would, ask me to bring her some at the time and all that. And if it just made a lot more sense instead of me buying it from these people, not knowing if it was organic.
Right.
Or
there's
not.
The control factor you're saying.
So that's when I was like, let's just plant our own. We can do it the same way we're doing it on the flower farm. I had a spot. I had to go find a spot out in the woods at that point, out in some logging land or something, timberland,
So you grew it guerrilla style.
Yeah, you had to back then. In the day, I'd say majority of people did, because you couldn't have it near your house and have the helicopters and
It was incredibly, it's hard for people to imagine now with it being so mainstream and practically nationally legal, but incredibly legal in most of America. Our international listeners, I'm sorry if your country doesn't have legalization of cannabis. It's terrible. Get some Howard's CBD oil. I don't know what to tell you right now. I'm sorry.
You should be able to get that anywhere. Yeah, that's some good stuff. Well, I was going to mention, I was wondering if Howard we know he uses some organics, at least, if not all, because he got some direct from the source of our hemp farm.
Conscious Cultivators. That's right.
Came from our hemp farm, which is Conscious Cultivators genetics for the hemps, but technically the hemp farm was Oregon Fresh Connection. So,
right.
Which we do sell, fresh and dried CBD flower to, people worldwide ourselves.
Nice. Yes. If you're listening, if you're interested in literally the highest quality CBD flower, it's available right now, right here, Oregon grown.
Or seed that we've developed through Oregon Fresh Connection.
Right. The seeds, of course, as well. Well, let's talk about that. Actually, so your farm, you start growing organically, and then from there, you just integrate that in your lifestyle. You become this grower. You realize that this is your life path, but unfortunately it's illegal at that time. It's not illegal now here, and like we were saying, but you knew it was your life path, and then boom, you went for it.
Well, so that was like 95, 96, I think. And then in 96, some point, I'm not sure if she was able to get it right then, or in 97, Mom got her medical card for California. pretty much as soon as she could. She was one of the first people in the state. I used to know what number, but I don't remember at this time. But so she came to do that to keep me from having to do it in this guerrilla illegal way that, you know, as a mom probably scared her or didn't want her to, worry about her son. She appreciated it. Yeah. You know, but probably no one wants their son out there doing things that could, you know, end up dangerous for him or in jail. Or
it's incredibly well known that thousands and thousands of people in that area were growing illegally. And it was known that the GDP of that area was mostly cannabis.
Yeah, more so
Even
than the wine country or something down there.
Yeah.
And
because it had different value.
Yeah, well, so that's what, you know, that's kind of the checks and balances of it all, though, is that, at least for me personally, is having the guerrilla grows were nice at times. And probably the first year I did all right, especially as an 18-year-old. I think I was still 17 and turned 18 around harvest. And then, you know, so even a few pounds at $4,000 or $5,000 a pound was good for an 18-year-old. I think I was an 18-year-old that came with maybe
and also $20,000 the value of money too. If you think about inflation,
that's true. I try not to think about that. But, you know, so with the guerrilla grows, though, that there was a time where, you know, a couple of times rip-offs would come and steal your whole crop or a good portion of it. Usually they'd take the tops. Ooh. Pretty devastating, hurtful thing to anyone. You know, there'd be families dependent on it, you know, single moms growing in the woods to, you know, people just trying to survive or do well in their life.
Do you
Point
think
is, it was tough. And even, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think they only took the tops because they wanted to use the least amount of time and out of safety, or it wasn't generosity of some code of ethics?
No, they took they were taking what they could take because they were in someone else's place stealing, and, you know, they probably knew, or they knew the value of the tops more. Right. You know, it could be a lot of things. Who knows, really. It
was a different time, and that's all gone now.
Yeah, it's gone. But things like that happening, or even camp coming in and taking our whole crop one year.
And what was camp again?
Camp was the campaign against marijuana planting, which was all over California at the time, ran by the National Guard and I think the, you know, sheriff departments, wherever.
Right, where they would swoop in and
or they'd utilize National Guard. Yeah, they'd fly in with helicopters, find the crop. A lot of times, for our crop in particular, they couldn't find a trail in because we had it pretty secure, and they would drop guys in off helicopters on ropes and, you know, go down there, cut it all down and take it off with nets. So those old photos that you've seen of that, I've unfortunately had to witness, you know, my year's work just disappear like that. And when that happened, I realized, well, I can't quit my day job. You know, this at the time, we're already doing like weekend warrior guerrilla stuff. We still have to work on 9 to 5, pay the bills, pay rent.
Right.
You know, anything we're doing then. And the whole thing is, you realize that at that time you can't rely on it. Like a lot of people get into the cannabis industry now. To even call it an industry was foreign concept back then. You know, right. It was too risky. It wasn't like everyone said, don't rely on this, you know, don't count on this for your livity and to do well.
Your livelihood.
Your livelihood.
But then people were for generations.
There's definitely generational families. Farmers there. Yeah. When I was there, I was, you know, I was the same age as some of the second, third, maybe even fourth generation Humboldt farmers and people they're calling, you know, legacy farms and things like this now that, you know, a few of them got to go on, but I feel the majority of them really suffered from legalization because just different ways their land didn't qualify, or they weren't able to jump through certain hurdles and hoops, or have the funds available to become a legal farm. Yeah. Even though their whole family for generations has relied on this.
Wow. That's interesting to think about. I mean, I think that's like that with any industry that goes legal that had underground aspects. You know, if people
that's true. Yeah.
If people aren't able to shift to the next phase of the industry's development as it becomes an industry, then unfortunately they drop off. It's sad because there's a lot of talented growers that unfortunately had to retire. But during that time,
that's so unfortunate to me. Yeah.
But during that time, you kept it organic. You never strayed. You might have tried different things, but as you learned more about it, you stuck to your guns even more to the point where you were making your own fertilizer, not using any bottled nutrients, and actually just using concentrates and just the most natural organic nutrients that you could. And tell me why that's so important to you. And why is that important in general? But why is that important to you? Let's talk about that.
Well, some of the things you just mentioned came about due to necessity, I'd say. Like from the beginning.
It was cheaper to use organic nutrients back then.
Yeah. In ways, if you're using the local inputs and things from, the neighbor's horse barn, you'd shovel for them, to chicken manure from our own chickens, and using mulch from the forest. They call it humus, to be out there gathering that up and using that, which is now a base of a lot of fertilizers, or not fertilizers, but soils you buy. It's a base of that. You can, we collect that up and use that actually for our beds or our holes. Our planting of the herb was in the forest. We didn't have to, for one, it was so hard to carry these bags of soil out. We tried that. That seemed unnecessary, and so once we even did that, we realized, we can't carry all these out. So we still had more we wanted to plant. We started using the forest material and said, hey, we already dug these holes. Our shoulders are sore, our backs are tired, out there digging with pickaxes and shovels, digging these holes. That was to conserve the water. We put them in the ground, and we'd collect all this duff from the forest, as we called it, in burlap sacks, whatever. Me and my buddies would be out there for days collecting this mulch, and in a sustainable way. We wouldn't take all of the mycelium or mulch from an area. That is actually where I also learned about mycelium. We learned at that early on stage that if we collected the stuff with all the white fuzzy in it, those plants excelled. And so we had these plants this one year, even in particular, I'm talking about, that we brought soil out, and then we also had the collected forest mulch and some of it with this white mushroom mycelium. And the mycelium ones excelled the best. The ones in the bottom soil struggled for different ways.
This was before it was widely known that mycelium aids in nutrient uptake.
Yeah, I think before it was widely known in the cannabis industry. Before it was a big talk, and there was a lot of products that, you got to inoculate your soil with mycelium. We're inoculating it with the mycelium from the forest itself. And a lot of that came from knowing where the mushroom spots were to hunt in the fall. So the same spots we collected were the same spots we go from chanterelles and matsutakis. And we noticed the way we were collecting it, we were actually kind of spreading around the mycelium, and the mushrooms would be more prolific year after year, instead of these areas where people would go and just clear out the hillside and not, let that stuff continue on. I don't know if stirring it up helped or what.
But it is important for it to be organic to you.
Yeah.
And why is that? Tell me some of the philosophies behind your thinking. Like, why is it important that it's organic?
I'd say the number one reason would be the health of it for all of us, right? We're going to consume something into our body. I couldn't even really imagine or contemplate, smoking a petroleum-based product, and in a sense saying, here, we're
like an oil cigarette or something.
Yeah, like we'd smoke something that came from, well, I don't know, a non-organic cigarette probably has petroleum-based products used in it, and yeah, people do this. So to me, it's mind-boggling, and it just seems unhealthy. I don't like to, eat unhealthy
because foods. The unorganic nutrients have petroleum in the nutrients.
A lot of them, yeah.
Petrolates, right?
There's different ways to make fertilizer, but that's when I really noticed that. So the majority of the people that weren't growing organic were using petroleum-based derived, fertilizers.
Yeah, Miracle-Gro, but even the ones that were using
I don't know the names of them right now.
More commercial types of fertilizer were still using petroleum-based methods. Essentially, the salt itself is petroleum based, and the salt,
I believe
holds
so.
the
Yeah.
nutrients that
It's
deliver it
petroleum byproducts, probably from making gasoline and stuff to get different things drying out. Turns out it has lots of nitrogen and phosphorus. Sure, you can feed your plants with that, but that's not really, it'll give you things that look better, maybe feel heavier, denser, potentially. But in my experience, they never taste better and they feel harsher, and the effects can be diminished and not as long lasting as organic, and the flavor and the feel and the harshness of it. Actually, that's the number one thing I think with getting to the other end of why I love organics, the smoking
get the chemicals out of the plant matter, the tissue itself.
It becomes it. It's like you are what you eat.
And they try to do flushing. There is a flushing mechanism to conventional growing, but you can never really get it 100% out.
I wouldn't think so, right?
And then you're smoking that.
Right? And then it's got to be in the plant cells at that point, you think. And so you're not really flushing it. You could flush it from the soil possibly. Flushing of chemically grown plants doesn't, there's probably ways it works, but it's still not as effective. You're still producing something in a non-organic way. There's other reasons for it besides just that, is that, organic sustainable way is a better way than polluting. A lot of chemicals can pollute and diminish soil over time. Using that out in forests like really growers were, taking things like these, nutrient pellets that were chemically based and putting them out in riverbeds and creek beds and stuff out in the forests and ravines of Humboldt County seemed like a travesty to me. Here you got these nice redwood forests and just a natural, pristine way that Northern California is, and then you're putting chemicals out in this pristine spot. So right there,
God,
that would make you want to stop doing it,
Right, because it really does introduce these toxic chemicals into these pristine natural environments, like you're saying.
And places where people are getting their water source. A lot of people get their water out of the creeks and even still to this day get out of the rivers and creeks of Northern California, and to put that in there. This also happens in Oregon, much lesser extent, I think. But, if you're using this stuff and it's running off into these streams, you're only helping yourself for the immediate near future. You're not helping any of the generations beyond you. Mom always had this poster up on the wall. It was the seventh generation. I wish I could remember the actual quote, but a way of
the seven generations quote, essentially, where they're talking about where everything you do, you have to take into account how the seventh generation from now would feel about it.
Exactly.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's the feeling of it, I think.
Like a Native American way of thinking that makes a lot of sense, because, do we really want to be messing things up for future generations? I don't feel good about that. No one should. And I think that's where we've gotten to a lot of frustrations people have in this world today, is things that were caused by future, generations previous us. Just even a couple back, you could say.
I know.
Not to place any blame anywhere, but it's not always thinking of it, or maybe not knowing that chemical fertilizers would have these kind of effects, and maybe they thought they had a great new way to do things and went with it.
Yeah, they're like, wow, look at this. The results are amazing. But they didn't know the after effects.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the movie Idiocracy, where they think Gatorade is good for you. All the crops are watered with Gatorade. And they're like, why are all our crops not growing? So, that we don't need that to happen.
Well, plant medicine in general is really taking off. Psychedelic plants, mushrooms, DMT, everything's going mainstream now. It's pretty amazing time to be alive. But cannabis itself is still a shamanic plant. I mean,
true.
It is a psychedelic in itself. It's definitely a psychedelic in an extremely high compound.
Yeah, hashtag I always like to use, healing of the nations. And to me, it is a healing plant. I like to keep that in my thoughts first and foremost,
Right. So then you think about the shamanic aspect of the plant, and then you're thinking about what kind of chemicals you're introducing into the shamanic plant.
Yeah.
So
the
then
energy and the vibes into it.
Yes. How
You're
does
putting this organic into it.
No,
right?
go ahead. Yes.
You're putting this organic into it, which is a good feeling. Jake here, I know he's an organic guy. He puts organic things into his body.
Yes.
And he wants to put organic things out into the world too. And you putting organic nutrients into that plant, feeding that, is also giving it this good energy of saying, I want this to be a healing thing. It's in a sense of people playing good music for their plants or something.
Right. It's more resonant with the true frequency of how the plant heals people.
The vibes of it, how we like to say.
Tapping into the most natural, the most organic, the most earth-based energy. Because you start introducing these synthesized chemicals, it messes with the shamanic frequencies. It makes it more of like just like another substance, like a less.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be a substance. I don't mean like.
Does it seem more like commodified or less spiritual at that point?
That's why I don't like people using the term recreational market.
For the legal cannabis market.
It can be that. It could be used to that if that's what it needs to be called, but it's so much more than that. It's not just recreational. It is medicinal. And even the people using it recreationally, I feel, are using it in that, in a shamanic way where you're bringing the healing vibes into your own body. It's uplifting you, upliftment, in reggae, they say feeling irie, this good vibrations, this kind of thing. So putting vibes into the plant is really important.
Because it helps activate those higher frequencies.
Exactly.
So the cleaner the weed, the more activation you can get from it. So that would explain then, in multiple states around the country, predominantly, I would say 90 to 95% of the weed that you will find in dispensaries is not organic, not even close, because
Probably,
they're trying
unfortunately not.
to maximize profits. They're trying to make sure they get the most yield, because that is one thing that has been statistically proven, that the chemical fertilizers do produce 20%, in some cases 30%, but usually around 20% more yield.
Oh, I'm sure you could get more weight, which weight translates to their sales, to profits. So yeah, that if you're going to just do the numbers, you see a lot of people in the cannabis industry doing their numbers and calculations on a calculator.
Right.
And that's going to make more sense for you, but you're doing a disservice to the community, and I think the plant, and even yourself, when you do it that way, because then you're not, thinking of it in those vibrations in this healing way. A lot of people would see that nonsensical and, far reaching, but the people that know, and the people that enjoy truly good cannabis from good people that grow it in a good way know this already and seek this. And hopefully it's a trend. It goes to a trend in a way of the future that we all just see this as a way, and some old ways fall off, like they have with other things that are unhealthy for us.
But then you talk about the stuff that's available for the masses, like we were saying, 90 to 95%. And that stuff is the stuff that's not organic. So it's not going to fully activate them as maybe something.
I wouldn't think it would. No.
And then you get something incredibly organic, like your farm's flower, and you're going to have an incredibly different experience. But they don't really focus on that. The organic cannabis.
I feel that, and this could be tested in ways, but I feel if you grew the same strain, the same plant at different farms or with different people putting their energies into it, even if they're growing the same technique, you're going to have different effects from that flower and different vibrations from it. And that's where a lot of the whole, a lot of the influences from other things, like bringing music, and especially reggae music. You said something earlier about earth vibrations. Reggae is considered like a heartbeat music, or the earth vibration music. It's really grounded and grounding, and playing that for plants to me seems real. You're putting those vibes in that we're talking about that you'd want to put in generally to plants through the fertilizer and the organic inputs you do. We've even just, grown plants with the native soil and no fertilizers, and just good energy into it. So, and
they grew well.
Yeah, they grow great.
They respond to your energy. They respond to the energy of the grower. it's really interesting. The plant itself, when you become a cannabis grower, as I've been personally in the past, I was a medical cannabis grower in my life. You develop a psychic connection with the plants.
So true.
And strangely, you know which ones, all of a sudden you get a feeling and you're like, wait, this one needs to be watered. And then you go and then you see that one and it needs to be watered.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen Jake 5 miles away going, I think my plant needs water right now.
Yeah. That's actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen this guy way in tune with his, garden.
But there is a spiritual component to cannabis. It does activate you. That's part of the reason why you want to be organic in your cultivation, because there's a consciousness behind it, the conscious cultivation. You're the conscious cultivator. So I
feel it's like third eye opening.
Yes.
Even when you first smoke or get into the experience of smoking, maybe not that very first time, but it's mind opening. Some people say their mind's blown. My mind's open now. You see things in a different way. There's even been jokes all around the world about, oh, that guy just needs to smoke a joint.
Right.
It's been said about leaders, about everyone.
It does seem to stimulate spiritual thinking.
Yes.
Spiritual thoughts. It opens you up to understanding a certain situation, maybe less, lower brain function and more just kind of awareness, a higher awareness and like a meditation almost.
Yeah. Upliftment, the consciousness, that's kind of where the name Conscious Cultivators and before that Conscious Productions came about was, that being conscious and aware and that mind opening, reality. Actually, almost originally it was going to be open mind productions and open mind cannabis was the ideas for both my production company in music and the herb company, just to get more to that core fact of you're opening up different ideas in your life, different opportunities, different ways of thinking, taking away things like stress and anxiety from you that will be debilitating and mind blocking. So it's so good in so many ways. It's something I can get behind and feel good about doing. I mean, I've worked other jobs in my life, from a fiberglass factory and, just in the restaurant industry and different things like this. And they never felt that same vibe that I feel from producing something good that I know people will enjoy and better their lives. So.
Right. And there is an ocean of weed out there, cannabis in multiple states. And people, I think, don't have the awareness to ask if their flower is organic. And a lot of the times the bud tenders, as they're called, I'm sorry if your country or state doesn't have dispensaries, but the people that work there are called bud tenders. Their bud tenders will just say that the strain is organic because they're thinking of the plant matter being organic plant matter, which technically, sure, it's organic plant matter, but that's not what they mean by organic growing. So you have to be very specific. And I don't think that people have the awareness to look for this organic flower in order to have the cleanest smoking experience that doesn't have any of these petroleum-based chemicals, that doesn't have any of this stuff in the plant tissue.
Yeah,
that could affect them.
Pesticides, fungicides, things
yes,
like
they're
this.
sprayed too. Let's talk about that. There's a spray aspect too.
I'm thinking about that way you're talking about.
Yeah, tell me more about that. The spraying that goes on. That doesn't happen in organic gardening. Though there is forms of pest control.
There is things you probably could do.
Let's talk about that.
Certified organic, like Oregon Till Standard or USDA organic, there's certain things you cannot use. Well, a couple of things I thought about when you were just saying that is that, organic cannabis really should be the way it just is. I would really like to see this and have been pushing for and would like to even start a campaign to get all things that are consumed into your lungs, should be like this with tobacco or anything else too, be only from organic source. I mean, that should just be the standard. Oregon has
right.
that. Yeah, just that should just be it. It shouldn't be a question of anything. Like they shouldn't be giving these chemical things to plants that people are going to be, burning, incinerating, and then inhaling into their lungs. It makes little sense to me. Now, Oregon has done some things as far as making a lot of the non-organic pesticides, not legal or not condoned in the state. You'd fail a test for using, pesticides that are non-organic. There may even be some that are allowed. It's very confusing, and the list changes a lot.
But you're smoking that. That's
you're smoking that. Even the ones that you can have that are oil-based, soybean oil-based, to isopropyl, to made from chrysanthemums or different things. You can spray some of those, but you're still getting it on the cannabis, still inhaling it. What we've personally done for that is I've worked over the years to develop strains where I did not need to spray. And again, it goes back to the fact that we were consuming it. My own mother was consuming it. I wanted her to be healthy and, just healthy myself. I never have smoked cigarettes or drank alcohol or anything because I want to keep my body as healthy as possible.
So some of the strains that you grow with Conscious Cultivators are some of these strains that you've engineered. And I don't mean like GMO, like just by crossbreeding.
Not engineered.
Just
developed
natural
over time
methods.
from breeding.
Are ones that are pest resistant, mold resistant, and things like that. And they're exclusive to your farm.
Yeah. So we developed things for especially our farm and other partner farms, different, friends I've worked with get these strains, and I've developed these strains to where they don't need, spray for powdery mildew, or they can resist Oregon fall rainy day like, we have this time of year. Here it is, October, and you can expect rain. So you can either have some plants that could get botrytis and mold and powdery mildew, or have ones that we've developed over time to be just resistant to that. And it just doesn't have the properties that powdery mildew would want to be on that. That then keeps us from having to spray fungicides on our plants, which a lot of farms are probably doing right now as we speak, all over legal states all over the world. And, it really just should not be done.
So are these proprietary strains that your farm has that you offer flower to dispensaries and things like that, but no other farms have at least right now? Yeah, I have licensing agreements with other farms and are developing with other farms in other states and within our state to utilize these strains and have them exclusively to their farms, or we even have strains that we've passed out to the general public, like the Alien ET, which is a Big E strain named after my younger brother Ethan, and another strain that we knew to be hardy in Oregon, an Alien Kush. We developed that. It works really well outdoors. I know thousands of plants right now growing in Oregon of the strain that we released through another farm to pass out, and it's keeping people from having to spray. And they're riding out these late rain showers. We got late season rain showers, and that would normally cause mold, but in these strains they're resistant. And they're not having to spray on this particular strain. You should be super proud of that. Yeah, really, actually, that should be a lot of thanks, I appreciate that. That should be a lot of the advertising these farms are even using, that they have this strain that they did not have to spray on because, it's resistant to bugs and definitely almost, So you do have licensing agreements with other farms. They're growing these strains. Yeah. But you could terminate that. They are proprietary. Yeah. You could terminate that at any time. And then also it's very limited. Are you ever going to sell the genetics as clones, maybe to medical patients in Oregon or anything like that? So, yeah. So one of the first licenses we got this year was for a nursery license to exactly do that. And what we can do is get plants out to medical patients and to dispensaries to be able to sell them to consumers that want to grow their own for legal plants here in Oregon, or bulk orders to different farms, legal farms across the state that want to have these proprietary strains and be able to grow in their
environment, whether it be outdoors, indoors, in a temperate rainforest or, in the Eastern Oregon desert. Point is, they can have something that they can rely on to be needing less dependent on pesticides and fungicides and sprays, to where they can now offer a cleaner product to the stores and therefore their customers and say, hey, here's some confidence in it. I have no control over these people growing organic or not, but the ones that are, you got some real healthy stuff that's going out there already. And then we also have our own strains like, a UW strain and a juicy fruit strain, a couple good old school strains people might have seen or heard around, Oregon blackberry, that are going out through our own farms on the rec market to, all these different dispensaries and
nice.
Things that you can count on being organic. We didn't spray anything. My pops, who runs the farm and helped develop a farm here in Oregon, he was just saying the other day about how we should be telling people we don't spray nothing on this. This is a great, Well,
that's huge, because even the natural stuff that they spray does have these strange soybean oils that have residual effects and
perithiums and different things.
Right. And this has nothing, which is huge. And you also do, like you said earlier, seeds, right?
Yeah.
For your THC flower and your CBD flower.
Yeah. So the CBD and hemp flower we sell, people can buy direct from us, Oregon Fresh Connection, or through
public people can buy directly from
anywhere.
CBD strains.
CBD hemp strains. Okay. And then in the a while back, I had given a good friend a big chunk of my archived seed, my seed bank that I'd been, heirloom seeds that I've archived over the years.
Yes, Will Grinnell.
Yeah, Will Grinnell,
who was a guest on the podcast.
Oh yeah, so you've had him. So yeah, he's a great guy and someone that I made sure got a good chunk of my seeds long ago, because he was having a seed bank and he is now releasing a lot of those from the seed bank. A lot of our heirloom genetics, deepgreengenetics.com. And he's got some specials on there and different releases. He releases these strains at a time. And yeah, it's that I'm pretty sure is available to anyone as souvenirs or however they want to handle that. But right now he's got a bunch of good strains out there
on deepgreengenetics.com.
Yeah.
And that's the THC strains.
Yeah. Ones like juicy fruit, you can see there, purple haze. You can find the Big E.
Wow.
Which was, particularly developed, like I said, in honor of and for my brother, Ethan.
However people do it, if they are interested in those THC strains, they can find those there. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. We'll circle back to that. But I did want to talk about how there's the music of cannabis. So you have this cannabis, it's spiritual, it's a shamanic plant, it's a mild psychedelic. It can be diminished by chemical cannabis growing, but you grow it organically. It's at full strength. And then there's a music that was developed with the cannabis. It was developed in Jamaica. Everyone knows it around the world. It's reggae music. Yeah, and you were a reggae ganja concert promoter for many years on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Even had
We're going to segue into conscious promotions. How did you like that segue? I kind of circled it around.
Yeah, that was great.
Now we're talking about reggae music.
That's right. We touched earlier on how I like to play reggae music for the plants. And even what brought me to Humboldt County was a great, world-renowned reggae show, Reggae on the River.
Yes.
And when I went there, I was still in high school. Went there, saw my aunt for the summer, and got invited to work on site and dig trenches for all the water lines at Reggae on the River. And then, I didn't really know too much about it. I don't think I'd been to an actual reggae show up until then. And first one being Friday night, or I guess it was Saturday night, Reggae on the River. It might have only been a 2-day thing back then. One of the first artists, by the time I got there and saw, was this artist Pato Banton. And he
That was the first artist you saw there.
Yeah, very first artist I think I've seen live on stage playing reggae anyways. And it just, he had so much energy and really blew my mind. And, you know, actually it's Pato Batman's birthday today. Now I think about it. Yeah. Happy birthday, Pato. Go Pato. Yeah. And the song I think that really stuck in my mind.
We're recording this October 5th, people. Just sorry.
Yeah. So, you know, it's Pato's birthday. Just something I happen to know. And he was playing the song called I Do Not Sniff the Coke, I Only Smoke Sinsemilla. Yeah. And I was just learning about Sinsemilla then, which is Sinsemilla, for those who don't know.
Another word for high grade cannabis.
Well, it's seedless.
Seedless, right.
Seedless. So I think a lot of time it was just always seeded herb. And then once they discovered Sinsemilla, they're like, hey, this is what we want. This is high grade. So it is synonymous with high grade. At that point, that really stuck to me because I already knew at that age, I never wanted anything to do with, you know, drugs and stuff. I was in high school in America. You see all the different drugs and stuff people go through and episodes they have with it. And I knew I was never going to sniff the Coke. I was only going to ever, if anything, smoke the Sinsemilla. So that stuck to me. Seeing Pato, I believe also, you know, there's some other artists there that I really enjoy. Culture was there, I'm sure, and Barrington Livy, and yeah, also good. And that really, at that moment, watching Pato, I was like, wow, why isn't this happening up in Oregon? I never seen anything like this happen in Oregon.
There was no reggae shows that were pretty prolific at that time.
No festivals like that. There was an attempt at one year at a state park that didn't really, it might have went off, but it didn't become reoccurring. So I thought, hey, this is the kind of, at that moment, I'd say I was having what a lot of people call an epiphany. You know, I was probably already smoking some good Southern Humboldt, Emerald Triangle, cannabis, loving the ganja in the moment, hearing this artist sing about ganja right then. And it all just came together for me. I was like, this is what I need to do. And more so than even growing, really in my mind, I thought the growing was just a way to get the funds and the ability to throw these shows, not necessarily as a way of life. I saw the throwing the concerts and bringing music to the people and consciousness to the masses. As I'm receiving this consciousness in the moment, I'm saying, hey, this is what I need to do to get it. Like, this is my life mission. I need to just become a concert promoter, I guess.
Wow.
So I thought in that moment,
how to bring this reggae music to people that had never heard it before.
True.
Because it was so impactful for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And for it's so impactful. It was, you know, I didn't have the name Conscious Productions at that time, but this is probably 4 years or so before Conscious Productions. I know even for a couple seasons being grow seasons in Humboldt County, when I was down there working, I'm sure I talked my buddies' ears off about, oh, I'm going to do these shows. Yeah. And one of my good buddies, Jason, he's like, you can just keep always talking about it. You can do something. And honestly, that was a really good moment because I was like, I think I will. Pretty much next time I talked to him, a few months later, I was handing him over, or I might have even mailed him a couple tickets to my first show. So it was really like the little boost I needed to hear. But yeah, that was kind of fun. That was out in the patch. I remember the moment clearly. And so I said, well, all right, you're right. I'm going to sell a couple of these pounds and I'm going to ask, you know, some of my favorite artists. And one of the artists I called was pre-internet, or about the time internet's coming out. And Clinton Farron had a fan.
Clinton Farron.
Yeah. Clinton Farron of the Gladiators.
Yes.
And at the time,
reggae legend.
Yeah. Legend, bassist, and foundation member of all reggae music, in my opinion. And he said that, well, he had a hotline calling artists. What do you call them? Let's say, so like it was just a hotline on a phone, you know, like a fan mail line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So instead of websites or, you know, even before MySpace or anything like that, artists had like hotlines, I guess. And he had one. I called it and said, wow, it's cool. I get to leave you a voicemail. I'd really love to have you come do a show in my town, Eugene, Oregon. I'm going to be up here for the winter. Let's try this out. And about 3 weeks later, my girlfriend at the time answers the phone, says, "Hey, there's a guy, Clinton Farron, on the phone. You want to talk to him?" And I'm like, I about, lost it. Here's one of the reggae legends that I've been hearing about for years in Humboldt County, and seen him at some shows there, probably at the Mateel or Reggae on the River. And I'm like, wow, this guy just called me to do a show. And he said, yeah, let's try it out. Line up a venue and a hotel room and send me some money or whatever, And so however he said it, he trusted me to make it happen. And I said, well, I don't have much money now, but if I sell some things for my crop, you get down here, I might have it. Sure enough, things worked out. He showed up. I was able to actually sell enough tickets for the show. We just used the tickets to pay him, pay the venue, pay everything. At that time, I think I was still, under 21. So we had to do the show at an all ages venue just so myself and my friends could all come to this thing, which we wanted to be a conscious event, and a conscious idea became a Conscious Productions. That's where that name came from, of us trying to bring enlightenment and upliftment to people, in a sense, another way to have healing of the nation. And so we had to do this in an all ages venue. Well, funny side thing is we couldn't find one, but my friend was, my good friends, Mike and Shannon, were having a ballroom that they did weddings at. And they said, oh, sure, you can come out here. And, these are high school friends of mine. We're all 19, I guess, and started throwing, shows at this spot. About a month later, we did a show with Apple Gabriel, one of the greats and foundation members of Israel Vibrations.
Yes.
And this man was a complete legend in my eyes, and just split from his band and was doing a solo career. I was able to pick up tour dates for him. He said, well, I'll come do a show for you. I heard you got this ballroom that you just did a show at from Clinton. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. We're just getting around. This is great. How about you, come in however long it was. And he says, well, I'll come out and do a show for you if you get me like 5-6 other shows, because I got to have a week's worth of work. I can't just come out for one night.
Right.
And that's when I decided, well, let's try to do this in all these other shows. My second show of all time was at a place called Cafe Tomo, right there on Arcata Square in Arcata, California, which is, just a fun, awesome thing for me. This is all in 1999 still, I believe.
Wow.
And, did a few shows with him, Apple Gabriel, places like Ashland, Missoula, Montana, Seattle, Portland, Bend, these kind of spots.
And it kept going, right?
Yeah, it just kept going.
Through the 2000s, you're putting on shows, you're interacting with all these different reggae legends. Tell me some other really interesting stories, or some of the really profound
one of the best things that happened
you've learned from
then.
these guys.
Oh yeah, so much. I mean, so much good advice.
Vaughn Benjamin. the legendary deceased singer of Midnight, the band Midnight, you were very good friends with, and you have a lot of stories. Tell me some of these stories.
Yeah, I had a lot of good times with Vaughn Benjamin. One of the best things, even that first show though, with Clinton, he said, hey, watch out for the snakes in the industry. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, he's like, I know you're loving this, but it's all fun and games. He said, the music industry is known for taking advantage of the people putting the good work out there. So just be aware of that. I was like, okay, that's good advice, and something I always held on to, and something I gleaned from that. Well, I come back to something on that later, but it's just one thing that really stuck with me. And each artist really gave me a tidbit of knowledge that helped develop my way of thinking in my mind, and develop Conscious Productions into what we wanted to do. The day after that Apple Gabriel show or tour run we did, which was just the second artist I'd worked with, I get a call from Family Man Barrett at the time, was doing some calling around trying to get shows for might have been Bob's 50th birthday, I believe.
Bob Marley's 50th birthday.
Yeah, Bob Marley's 50th birthday. I'm thinking, thanks for that. I forget that we're talking to a lot of people here. And, when I got that call, he's like, oh, this is Family Man, or, whatever he said. I knew who it was, but I was just shocked. And he goes, yeah, I heard you did a show with Apple and Clinton Farron. Well, it should be easy if you want to do a show with the Whalers. Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I'd love to do a show with the Whalers. He's like, do you think you'd do February 6th? This is a couple months out. And I'm like, oh, February 6th, that's Bob's birthday. And he's like, oh yeah, that is Bob Marley's birthday. And I was like, of course they'll do a show. And he goes, yeah, this is going to be the biggest reunion of the band since Bob's passing. We're going to have all the remaining original members, you know. Man, there's so many people there. It was Wire Lindo and, you know, Family Man himself and Al Anderson.
Chinna Smith.
I'm not, well, Chinna might have been there, but Tyrone Downey. I did meet Chinna. He could have been on that tour, actually. You're right. Marcia Griffiths was there singing backup. It was beautiful. She gave me a lot of good advice that night too, and really, you know, she was probably in her 50s at the time or something, and she was really wanting to, like, she's like, oh, I could tell you're new at this. Stick with me, and I'm going to show you some things, and gave me a lot of just advice. Like during the night of the show, she's like, let's just stick together, and she would like hang out with me and help me, you know, with different situations they arose with the band, someone coming asking something, or maybe we had my mom at the time working the front gate, you know, taking all the money for everyone, because, you know, who can you trust better? Mom, right? So mom was watching the front, and there'd be some issues come up with some people, I don't know, just for whatever reason, stuff with the guest list or people trying to negotiate on ticket price. And I remember Marcia going up there and sitting next to Mom, and there's probably a picture of this somewhere, and helping her take ticket sales and stuff, and saying, look, let me help you guys with this. Looks like your third show or something. Like, oh, it is our third show. And, you know, really, really helped tune us in. And so at that point, and she put out a lot of good word for me in the industry too, and told other artists, at times, I believe my mom and her would talk, and I would talk to her to say, hey, I'm thinking about working with this artist. Can you put in a good word for me? And she said, oh yeah, no problem. I'll tell them about you guys and stuff.
And Marcia Griffiths, just for people that don't know, she was one of Bob Marley's backup singers, one of the I3s, but also had an incredible solo career and is an incredible artist in her own right. Marcia Griffiths, she's amazing.
Yeah, she's an amazing artist. Electric Slide is one of her big hits that a lot of people would have heard of.
So tell me some of the other things that you've learned though over the years, because you've done probably close to 100 reggae shows with pretty much all the artists that
were touring at times,
some of the new ones even, but definitely,
and even artists that weren't touring. Yeah. Sometimes I bring artists out of semi-retirement, or artists that just didn't tour. Like Apple was one, and someone like Queen Omega, I helped get some of her first shows out here.
Tell me about that
festival show.
Queen Omega.
She was an artist. You know, I probably learned about her somewhere on when everyone started sharing music and stuff, probably even on MySpace, I bet you. So one of the good things to come out of MySpace there was learning about her and seeing that she was a big artist from Trinidad and Tobago, and really probably didn't have a way to get out this way except for an event like a big festival like Sierra Nevada Music Fest or Reggae on the River or something like that. And at one point I became a booking agent for a festival here in Oregon, and eventually helped found and produce it to where I had the chance to bring someone like Queen Omega, like, hey, we can invite you over. A good friend in the industry, or my friend Tula, was working getting passports for people, and made sure, she's like, oh, I got this woman's passport already, have her come out. So we're able to introduce people on the West Coast and in Oregon to someone like this great artist. If you guys don't know her, look her up, Queen Omega. I think she's actually dropping a new album or single this week, actually. Point is, you know, it gave me an opportunity to bring people and their message. I really felt the message and the words someone like Queen Omega was saying, or one of my good friends, President Brown, who his music spoke to my inner thoughts, like the things I wanted to say to people and help them understand, that sounded kind of over the top at times. Like people that were in their conservative ways of thinking would think it was, you know, like you're just kind of out there on some high spiritual levels. And a lot of people think of that as you know, they just don't understand. If they don't jive with it, they have a hard time connecting with it. So this man, in his music, was putting that out there. Same with Queen Omega. Same with the man Von Benjamin that of Midnight that Jake brought up. They were really saying things that I'm like, I gotta help them get their word out and people to hear this. At that point, it really ingrained in me that's what I needed to do is have artists that are putting themselves on a way and putting themselves out there, their inner thoughts. If I can't do that myself, at least I can help them get to the people and bring the massive in front of them.
And it activates people, and you're helping activate people because you're bringing them this special spiritual music.
Yeah.
That all comes from the cannabis, inspiration, the cannabis smoking and what they do as they're writing this music.
That's right. That's where all this is definitely going.
But in your career, you did interact with some of the Marley family. I know you did a show with Kimani Marley. We smoked a joint with Kimani Marley, me and you together many years ago. But tell me a story. Tell me
that was
your
like a birthday extravaganza, that one.
Yeah.
That was on my birthday.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 13. Man, the
almost
time
exactly.
flies. That's really interesting.
That's interesting. You brought, the Kimani one was nice because that was a little tour run I got to do with them, ending up down in Humboldt County, California, where it always seemed to come back to for me. The Humboldt, Oregon, reggae, ganja connection is just so deep with me. I mean, it's kind of ingrained in everything, but from the herb being so pristine in both spots to the shows of reggae artists being so well received in both spots was amazing. There was one thing you were talking about as far as bringing artists around. Queen Omega was one of them that I really got to, get inspired by and then help bring to the West Coast, particularly Oregon, I think for her first show. And, other artists that would hear over time. I think at the Queen Omega show, I met this aspiring artist, Josh Sun, who happened to live in Arcata, California when I did. And he wanted to put himself out there. I was able to get him some of his first shows, actually his very first festival appearance, which put him in a sense on the map for other promoters and people. And, his message was one of positivity and raising consciousness that I was getting able to bring out. And from, there it went to an artist, like I said, I already helped bring President Brown to places like Hawaii and stretch out that inspiration and that music that we're
the energy of reggae.
Yeah. The upliftment, it's more than Phil and Irie. It's really about a way of life and evolving spiritually to, evolve and just be a better human and, elevate our minds, our souls, all of it. And these artists that are putting their life work into it, it just seemed it was the least I could do by helping them on the ground, so to say, or behind the scenes, orchestrating the shows, or
just having a role, having any
role. I was honored
to help facilitate that energy, to set up the venues, to set up these situations dozens and dozens of times. And you have some funny stories. I want to hear your John Baptiste story. He was a promoter in the Northwest, famous in this area, at least, for doing a show at the Gorge in the year 2000 that featured members of the Grateful Dead and Ziggy Marley. But tell me the story that you have about John Baptiste and the deceased singer Apple Gabriel, who was a part of the legendary reggae band Israel Vibration. Tell me about that.
Well, that was interesting because, for those that don't know, Apple Gabriel is always considered a rude boy. He was maybe even one of the first people to coin that term, rude boy. I might not even say that, but to the rest of the world.
Like a tough guy.
Yeah, it was a term used in Jamaica, it's probably where he got it from. And whether other people consider it or not, I've seen things myself to justify that it was. But the first day of the show, a tour run I did with Apple was, I had heard this stuff about him. That he's a rough guy to work with and rude boy. He and I got along great. he was, a solid artist. He rehearsed. He knew what he was doing. He had been in the industry long enough to know riffraff from, honest, true blue people. But that first show we went to in Arcata, there was a little trouble getting paid from the artist. I think they were maybe, what it was a sold out show. And with a sold out show, there should be a bonus for an artist. He's like, oh, go collect my artist. And I went back there and the guy's like, oh, I don't think I have any money left over from whatever, and I go back to Apple, tell him this, and he says, no, let's go. And we go back into the kitchen. It's like, hey, this is, I need to talk to you. We walk back in there and he pulls out this knife that's sitting on the kitchen and said, give us our money, And I'm like, whoa. And he like grabs the guy and, Apple Gabriel's man that, his legs were damaged from polio and couldn't walk very well, but he got up on this guy and kind of tossed him over the prep table, in the kitchen. And the guy coughed up some money real good. And later told me that, yeah, he was just holding out on us. He did have the money. He thought he could we didn't need it or whatever. Well, a few nights later, we ended up in Seattle on a tour night. Actually, we ended up maybe the Ballard Locks. I can't remember which one was first, but we ended up there for a show. And there was this artist, some artist playing at a venue. Wish I could remember the name, but it was owned by that guy, John Baptiste, and Bohemian is where it was. And he talked Apple personally, aside from talking to me, to coming and doing a guest appearance at his show, even though we already had a show that night. And showed up there, did a guest appearance for some sum of money. And at that point, Apple went up, did the show, little 4 or 5 songs with another artist, came off the stage and he goes, I need you to come with me. And I go, okay. He says, you got a knife, right? And he pulls out his knife and I'm like, oh man, we need a knife for this? He goes, yeah, I have a feeling this John guy's not going to pay us. And he goes walking up with his knife out. And John Baptiste sees, this is backstage or maybe in an upper dressing room, I can't remember where. This guy sees Apple walking up, kind of the way he does, with a knife in his hand, just reaches into his pocket and pulls out some hundreds and starts counting right there and hands Apple his money. And Apple's like, okay. And, I don't know if all this was necessary, but the guy got paid and no one was really messing with him. So That's just kind of my funny John Baptiste story because basically said, oh, this guy's not going to pay us. And he just, because there was a lot of
shitty business dealings going on in that industry, more so than in other genres of music. It seemed that people,
I wouldn't say that as much. I don't agree with that. I think there was a couple more people picking on the Sharks, preying on, and that goes back to what Clinton Farron said. I even think he may have been mentioning that guy, John, up in Seattle anyways, because that's where Clinton Farron was home based out of and probably already worked with him. But, so there's really more just a few bad seeds try to ruin the bunch. And the problem is they were taking advantage of people that were putting out good consciousness and like, oh, these people are so nice, that, hey, maybe easy they're a pushover. We take advantage of them. They're just nice guys. Apple was really a nice guy raising consciousness, but he wasn't going to put up with bullshit from a, snake in the industry.
Right. But there were cool people, and you've also
way cool people,
met almost like guru type prophet people like
Joseph Hill.
Joseph Hill
is one of the most inspired
Vaughn Benjamin, and
Bunny Wailer,
and Anthony B.
He's a good one too.
Some great stories about Anthony B. Tell me an Anthony B story.
Man, I got great stories about all those. I got a good Bunny Wailer cannabis story I'll tell you about. Maybe when we wrap it up at the end, you have to remind me. But I was just reminded of that one the other day. As far as Anthony B, I was able to have him. I get the fortunate opportunities to work with him numerous times. Well, even before that, because I did mention Joseph Hill, I just want to say that guy inspired me a lot.
Of Culture, really, the band Culture.
Yeah, world renowned. He had a song called International Herb and really was a spokesman, like people like Peter Tosh and Bob Marley in the day, singing about and speaking about the herb. he really put himself out there from early on, like 70s, probably talking about ganja. And he really inspired me to keep going. And also, you know, he let me know in a couple of shows I did with him in like 2001 that it was a good thing and all right. And it since gave me a blessing to have the herb and the ganja, you know, the urban ganja and the music industry mixed and intertwined in my life to where one helped the other. If it wasn't for that, you know, I might have fell off of one or the other, but he really put that in my mind. And from that point, I kind of went into a really aggressive and gung-ho approach to throwing shows, and was even doing a couple shows a month. Sometimes I do, if I had a tour going through, I'd do, you know, 10 shows a month or so in various cities. And, you know, that led to working with the likes of, like me, 2005, a good friend of mine, Ross Danny up in Portland, he said, man, you really got to check out this artist, or this group Midnight. I was like, I never really heard of him. Maybe I'd heard of him briefly, but point is, he brought up that you got to really put out and try beyond what we already know. A lot of this comes into, you know, developing my mindset of exploring different artists in the music industry that I'm already caring about, to bringing in and putting a risk with artists like Midnight, Queen Omega, you know, ones like that. Like the same way we do with cannabis strains, like putting that risk out there and trying it, not just always going for the comfort zone of having the artists that we all know we, you know, like.
You truly nurtured the scene. It wasn't necessarily just promoting the big names that you knew were going to sell tickets. You wanted to also help jumpstart some of these people's careers and help bring attention to some of their incredible music, because all of the artists that you've mentioned, you can put them into Spotify or Tidal or whatever you use, or even YouTube, and find their music. And they're all incredible artists with incredible music.
Yeah.
It's all conscious music. There's a consciousness in the music that seems to intertwine with the consciousness of the cannabis, like the cannabis that you create with your farm, your family's farm.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it just the bringing something to the plate, bringing something to the people that they can take and utilize how they want, you know, whether it be lyrics in a song, to the way you feel when you smoke a joint, or, you know, eat some cannabis in a brownie or something, you know, whatever that does to bring you to an open mind and an open state that you can evolve and go outside your box, beyond, and grow from where you're at is really the inspiration for it all. And when I had a chance to work with Von Benjamin that early time, I took a chance with him. We did a show, and I really learned that, wow, this guy is trying to open channels to another dimension or universe. He's like trying to do something different than just singing and talking to people. Opening a portal. We talk about that in the Jam Band world a lot. Yeah, I believe he has a album called Portals. And, you know, I really saw it in that first show that my friend Ross Danny talked me into doing. I was a little hesitant. I had some money from a herb harvest and was able to, you know, put in my part to help him produce it and actually make it happen. Once that happened, I realized, we got to do more of this. And when I invited Vaughn back to a, you know, event out in the woods in the forest one time, I said, hey, me and my good friend Julius, who brought him with us, we both felt this way. We're both in the cannabis industry, and we looked at this guy and said, hey, this is your spot tonight. The veil's thin tonight. You could feel the energy, the veil between worlds, the veil between, you know, consciousness and our real world, which is so intertwined yet also separate. You know, I said, hey, this is your chance to do what you want with it. And he said, I needed to hear that, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do. You know, he's like trying to make this veil thin. And I said at that moment, this has been always my dream, to make that that veil thin so we can step over into heaven and have that realization that heaven's here on earth, which is something that I believe all these artists have helped me realize at some moment. Waves we've all felt at some of our happiest moments in life. And to realize that moment that really heaven, whatever you want that to be, or however you want to call that, Shangri-La, Eden, it is here. Eden began here. It's still here. We're here. It's the way we perceive it. And with the cannabis, and especially conscious cannabis with good intention and healing vibrations into it, and the good music, you're getting closer to that realization, and even the chance of all of us accepting that at one time and just really living it and being it.
And it helps reset that spiritual center.
Yeah.
And it helps get you cleared out and helps you reconnect with the divine energy, that creator frequency. I think that's part of cannabis's purpose, and the spirit of cannabis's purpose is to really keep you in alignment with the divine. And you see these people in India, some of these holy people that smoke cannabis hash actually constantly, and
That's
also
right.
in Jamaica, they're incredibly spiritual people, and they're smoking incredible amounts of cannabis because it keeps you in that spiritual frequency. It keeps you in that divine frequency. I know that's why I smoke cannabis. I know that's why I've been smoking cannabis this entire episode, because I want to say
that's right.
And the cannabis frequency as we talk about this. And I know it's been very stream of consciousness and we're just kind of in the flow, but we've talked about some really amazing things. We've talked about a lot of incredible things, but I really want to leave people with one big solid point. Why do you think the most important reason is that people should seek out organic flower and make that the part of their cannabis consumption? Like, why should they go all organic from now on?
It's the right thing to do.
For what reason? Spiritual, physical,
for all those,
mental.
I mean, if you want to feel good about the things you're doing in life, then you got to start with the simple things like the right choices, as far as the right choice of what you're going to put in your body, the right choice of where you're going to spend your money, the right choice of things you're going to listen to and subject your children and your families to. All those things go hand in hand. I mean, we're not even talking about things as far as what you subject those around you to by not supporting organic. Someone else's land next to that non-organic farm is getting tainted. Sure, it might not be your problem, and it's not even maybe the farm's problem. That's all an opinion, but you're affecting those around you there. And then if you're smoking non-organic cannabis, you're also subjecting people around you to that. Really?
Yes, when you're sharing.
Yeah, when you're sharing, you're going to pass that joint and give someone something that's not the healthiest. Or are you the kind of person that also likes to make an organic sandwich for your friend? Give that, are you going to give them some non-organic cannabis to smoke? That doesn't really make too much. It doesn't make too much sense, but to each their own. But probably the number one reason is what's happening to our earth and environment with all of us humans here using and putting back and not thinking of that 7th generation rule that we mentioned earlier of thinking about what the generations beyond us are going to have to deal with because we went the easy route or the little bit better route. It just really doesn't make sense. I'd like to see, as far as, conscious organic cannabis cultivation, you really got to hope that people see that and organic cannabis will start being, demanding a better price and making it more worthwhile for the farmer to actually switch, because that weight doesn't matter if he can get more price for his less weight of organic cannabis. That to me would be a dream. It might be a far-fetched dream, but together people can figure that out. I'd like to see regulations go towards that really and just demand that all farms be organic. It would really level the playing field for all farms and have it be the competition would be different to where if you're all growing organic, then it's going to pan out the way you want, and the price is going to get better for everyone.
Then you know everything's exactly
more
the
detailed
way. And the real growers are the ones that are going to thrive, not the very easy to grow chemical cannabis
that's putting things out there that's just a farce. Like a lot of these states, California and Oregon in particular, talk about it over production. If you put that more on all organic stipulations, then the production would probably go down, but there's obviously more than we need anyway. So it would work out better for everyone.
Well, do you hear that?
I'd really like to see this work out.
If you go to a dispensary, if you're a person that shops for weed in a dispensary,
please ask for organic.
Demand organic. Don't just ask for it. Demand it, and demand that it's certified, because then you know that it's actually organic. Don't just take them at their word. Find the farms, get the names of the farms, research the farms. They'll put it on their website, and then you know exactly what you're putting in your body. And Josh, I want to thank you for being on the show. We could talk forever.
Awesome. I know. We'll have to do this another time. I got stories
conversation, but that's what we love to do, is introduce people and then have them back again, because you have such. I
might have to save that Bunny Whaler story for next time.
Well, maybe we should. There you go. We'll save it for the next time. But I do want to tell people where to find you. Of course, your seeds, if you're able legally, or however they do it, I'm not sure. But if you're able to get his genetics, his THC genetics, you can get it at deepgreengenetics.com. That's deepgreengenetics.com. And just check your local laws and see how that all works. And of course, for the CBD hemp, just look up Oregon Fresh Connection, and you will find that. And you can, of course, hit them up on Instagram, which is at Conscious Cultivators. So that's the @ symbol and the word Conscious Cultivators, all one word, Conscious Cultivators. And there you can find it, and send them a message. If you're confused, you want to know where to find Deep Green Genetics, their Big E, the UW, these strains that are not needing any kind of pesticide.
Stinky Pink.
The Sticky Pink.
Stinky Pink,
Really heritage legacy strains that have been cultivated for a really long time. If you want to find those, check those out. And so, man, thank you for being on the show.
What I got to mention also is that
please.
What all this inspiration is really culminated into the chance for this new festival to come about that Jake and I are working on.
Yes.
Earth Dance Re-Evolution Festival.
Up in Washington. Let's hope, people. 2022.
It gives us something to work on, that we're trying to put out there. More conscious music, conscious reggae music, conscious music of all genres that will be, out there for the people, and
really being conscious is a lifestyle. You make conscious choices. You make conscious decisions.
We put a lot of thought and energy into this to make this a thing.
And we're talking about this music festival that we're working on, and I will tell you people about it more. Don't worry, people. We're just a little
that's just a little tease right there, because they couldn't go without saying that all this is, coming to a head. It's something that should be spectacular for all people.
Just putting that in your consciousness, people worldwide. And of course, we talked about Blue Cobra CBD, which of course is amazing. Please check that out. Get your free bottle. Email him. Get your free bottle for the love of whoever your deity is worldwide. They're there wondering why you're not already emailing Big H, Howard, and getting this free bottle of Blue Cobra CBD oil. Do that. And everyone, we'll see you next week. Midnight on Earth.
Thanks.